I will take the Israelites out of the nations where they have gone. I will gather them from all around and bring them back into their own land.
God said throughout the Old Testament that in the last days, I will draw my people from the four corners of the earth back to the land of their forefathers, Palestine. That literally opened the curtain for the Antichrist to come on the scene.
We are examining whether an Antichrist of biblical proportions has arrived to accelerate the chaos and destruction witnessed in the modern world. The quatrains of Nostradamus suggest that this Antichrist will be the last of three false messiahs. His arrival will be immediately preceded by a second evil, one who creates the conditions for the last of Nostradamus's Antichrists to destroy the world. For centuries, followers of Nostradamus have examined his quatrains for clues to the identity of the second Antichrist.
From the very depths of the west of Europe,
Nostradamus feared that the second Antichrist would be many times more brutal than the first.
Nostradamus is telling us that something is coming upon the earth that we are not used to, that he has described, if you like, in the first two Antichrists. They weren't simply national monsters, they were supranational monsters. They had enormous worldwide influence. And I think that that's what he's implying here.
His prophecies about the second Antichrist are among his most persistent and specific. Many agree they point directly at history's most notorious madman.
He who by his tongue will seduce a great troop.
Nostradamus first mentions the second Antichrist in this chilling quatrain, which dooms Europe to another round of terror and destruction. And there is just such a man, from the exact location prophesied by Nostradamus, Adolf Hitler.
Liberty will not be regained. It will be occupied by a black, proud, villainous, and unjust man. When the matter of the pontiff is opened, the Republic of Venice will be vexed by Dister.
Hitler often appears in interpretations of Nostradamus, largely because Nostradamus keeps referring to a figure called Hister, which is fairly close to Hitler, and it means the Danube.
Here, Nostradamus's prophecy seems precisely on target. Hitler was born in Austria, and Austria's main river is the Danube.
It didn't take people long in Hitler's time to start applying them to him. Moreover, Magda Goebbels, who was the wife of Hitler's propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, who was interested in the occult, came across these things and said, wow, this must be about Hitler.
She wasn't alone. Others made this same connection.
The typesetter in one of the early versions of the prophecies actually turned one of the Hister-Ister quatrains into Hitler by mistaking the letter and substituting the T.
Hitler was known for his mesmerizing and charismatic speeches. In less than 10 years, he seduced Germany into waging war across the globe with virtually unquestioned impunity. Most disturbing, he convinced Germans to carry out a genocide that virtually wiped out European Jews and other victims. In all, more than 6 million people. Nostradamus writes,
His fame will increase towards the realm of the East.
The last line is quite interesting, which also points to it being about Hitler. Imperial Japan became so enamored with Adolf Hitler that it led to the Tripartite Act, the Axis Alliance, which united Mussolini's Rome with Hitler's Third Reich and Imperial Japan.
Responsible for a death toll that reached into the tens of millions, Hitler is synonymous with evil more than any other single human being in history. But could he also be Nostradamus's second Antichrist?
The way to understand why Hitler is the second Antichrist is, again, the steps that the first Antichrist initiates Napoleon by creating the modern world through the Napoleonic Wars that created the unification of Germany, the Second Reich, which led to the creation of the Third Reich of Adolf Hitler. That's the link between the first and the second.
It is suggested that, like Napoleon before him, Hitler may have been aware of his own destiny as an Antichrist, as revealed in the quatrains of Nostradamus.
Hitler was part of an esoteric and occult underworld before the First World War that was fascinated by Nostradamus and his prophecies. By 1939, Hitler was self-identifying with the idea of being the second Antichrist. Since this was such a large conflict, since this was another one of Nostradamus' very meaningful time periods, then this must be the second of his three Antichrists.
They also believe Hitler perhaps saw Napoleon as his Antichrist predecessor. He revered Napoleon, and soon after the fall of France in 1940, visited the French dictator's tomb. And even more verses seem to link Hitler to Nostradamus' second Antichrist. He seems to hint at Hitler's downfall.
Beast ferocious with hunger will cross the rivers. The greater part of the battlefield will be against Hister.
If you were in the 16th century and you had to describe an automobile or a tank or a floating attack boat, you might call it a beast that roared with its thundering engines, that breathed like a dragon, that come across the great rivers. Beast ferocious with hunger. He's trying to look at fantastic technology that he's never seen before.
Into a cage of iron will the Great One be drawn, when the child of Germany observes nothing.
And the cage of iron, is this Hitler's bunker? The bunker that Hitler retreated to toward the end of this reign.
If an emissary of future visions gave you a great trench dug in Berlin that had all this amazing iron rebar work for a huge bunker that was under construction, wouldn't it be said that you put that man underground into this great cage, which became the Führer bunker?
It was in this bunker that Hitler, on the verge of losing the war he himself initiated, committed suicide. Some see Hitler's sociopathic lack of conscience as further proof that he is Nostradamus' second Antichrist. If Christ embodies pure compassion, Hitler is his exact opposite.
I am haunted by a quote that Hitler gave very honestly about his ability to find the right way and make the right decision. I follow my path with the complete confidence and certainty of a sleepwalker. To be asleep is the ultimate unconsciousness, to literally be a somnambulist through life. Here's this very powerful, charismatic sleepwalker leading the whole world into an abyss. That, to me, is Antichrist.
According to believers, the Nostradamus effect may be overwhelming our modern world. But how can these theories be tested? If Napoleon was the first Antichrist and Hitler the second, who was the third? And is he among us? Evidence suggests that before this false prophet can unleash a terrible battle between the forces of good and evil, another critical step must first take place. The prophecies of Nostradamus suggest that a third false Messiah, a new Antichrist, may arrive in our lifetime. Some believe his predictions are foreshadowed by the book of Revelation. This biblical text purports that a so-called Savior will set the conditions for Armageddon. From where do believers suspect this third Antichrist will emerge? Will it be in the turbulent Middle East, Iraq, Iran? Or might he appear from desperate regions within Africa? Some say he will perhaps emerge from within a superpower government, such as the United States.
I believe that the world is already preparing for him coming on the scene.
What clues in the quatrains of Nostradamus provide solid leads to identify the third Antichrist?